Welcome to City Connections. Good to see you again. I'm Steve Kime, Director of Public Relations and Marketing, and also the Enid Television Network for the City of Enid. I have the privilege, as you know, and often to interview some really special guests. Some really difference makers is what I call them in the Enid community. And I've got a special guest, and we're going to talk to this individual in just a few moments. Advanced Pierre Foods is a nationally recognized supplier of value-added proteins and sandwich products to food service, to retail, to schools, convenience channels across the United States. And beginning back in 1973, Paul Allen assembled a team of dedicated and hardworking individuals, and the result, Advanced Pierre Foods is one of Enid's largest employers. And this is not an overnight story, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome again to my special guest, Mr. Paul Allen. Paul, you keep telling me to say call. Forget the Mr. Allen, it's Paul. Yeah. What a success story. And it didn't start overnight, even though it kind of started maybe in the early 70s. How did it get to where it is today, Paul?
Well, I don't imagine my stories, or this story is not unlike a lot of others. After I graduated from University of Nebraska, went to work for the George A. Hormel Company and had a plant in Fremont, Nebraska, spent a couple of years there, transferred to Austin, Minnesota, the headquarters. I was there 7 years. Then the Hormel Company bought a little plant in Oklahoma City, making hamburger patties, chicken fried steaks, and that kind of thing. So I was a manager there, and after a year there, my present partner who was with me at Advanced Food Company came to work there as the sales manager. So the two of us worked together from 1968 to 73. And about that time, we got kind of tired of the corporate life, the big corporate business. Just wasn't quite as fulfilling as we wanted to have. So we started looking for something else to do, and we looked at 2 or 3 opportunities in Oklahoma City. Wewoka had a little meat plant, and then we got a chance to look at a little place up here called Advanced Meat Company. We saw in that plant something that we felt we could make products that we knew how to do there. So this became our home, and our first day of production was July 31st of 73. Very, very small at that time. You know, we didn't even work every day, but little by little we grew, and then and it wasn't real fast, but we got the plant full, or the building full, and even went to a second shift, and eventually ran out of capacity. And then we picked up another plant. Bud Nicholas was the one that contacted me about a building on East Pine. And so we got that building in the 80s and opened that plant up in 1986, which I think it was about triple our production capacity after that. Well, it didn't take long then to sell that capacity up. And so then in 1991, got together with Tom Sailors, his first day on the job of, I don't remember what it was called, but it was economic development business. And Tom was his first day, and we got together with him on January 1st of 1991 and made a deal on the Chesterfield building out east of town. And that building was the right size for the kind of equipment that we needed. And and we I think we got that plant open with, it presently has 6 production line. I think we started out with 2, and but then we were able to sell that right away, and it wasn't very long, and we added the other 4 lines. And then from that was in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, and then from then till for about the next 10 years, we finished that plant, made 6 or 7 acquisitions out of Oklahoma, small competitors. Did quite a bit of consolidation of our competition by purchasing them. Built the other plant up on Willow, and and then along the way, we were able to find the people that knew how to make it work.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all the background, because it's real easy to drive out east on 412 and look off to the south and say, yeah, Advanced Foods has always been that way, but it's good to know the early beginnings. I remember seeing an interview with a Hollywood star, if you will, movie star, and they said, well, how did you attribute your overnight success? And the person responded and said, well, it took me 30 years of overnight success to get here. And it sounds like it took another 20, 30 years of having this overnight success as well. My next question is along these lines. When I worked for Phillips Petroleum in a previous life, I had a supervisor, a mentor, that said, Steve, remember this, always surround yourself with the best people. And that was a long, long time ago, Mr. Allen, when he shared that with me. And I'm mindful of that, and I try to incorporate that. And Steve, just surround yourself with the best people. What would be some professional achievement, I guess, suggestions? It sounded like you needed to have some forward thinking, that you needed to be patient. You did find a partner that was, compatible. But what would be some other professional, I don't know, I guess, suggestions that you could share with our audience? If they're back in their 1970s right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that the very biggest thing in any business, or almost in any part of life, is relationships, and being able to have a good relationship with, well, in our business, I always thought there were three groups of people we had to be perfect with: our employees, our suppliers, and our customers. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but they all of them were right at the top. If you obviously have to have customers, a long time ago somebody told me you have to make money off your friends, because your enemies are not going to buy from you. So I just, if I could put my finger on any one thing, it would be being honest and having the ability to get along with everybody and make things happen. So I don't know how else to describe it that way, but to me, developing good relationships everywhere is the key. And
that, I think you can carry that into in your personal life and also professional life. It's all about relationships, and I appreciate you sharing that. Well, my special guest on City Connections may not need an introduction, but it's an honor for me to visit today with Mr. Paul Allen of Advanced Foods, and he was also selected as the 2014 Pillar of the Plains. Is it honoree? Is that the term? Not necessarily the winner, but anyway, you were the Pillar of the Plains for 2014. And we'll talk to Mr. Allen about what that Pillar of the Plains means to him right after this. Welcome back to City Connections. I appreciate you taking time to watch us today here on the Enid Television Network. My special guest, it's a real honor for me to interview Paul Allen, and really to interview a lot of individuals in Enid that have truly made a difference. Well, Paul, you were selected as the 2014 Pillar of the Plains honoree. That's a big deal. How does it make you feel?
Well, it was, first of all, it was a surprise, and I am actually pretty humbled. The three other nominees are all friends of mine. They're all worthy, and it was just fun to be with them. As far as and like I say, it's a humble experience. Didn't necessarily expect it, but anyway. But what it really, the way it really happened, and what I think about it, it really came from two real important things to me. One was the city of Enid made it possible for us to have the building on out east of town on 54 or on 412 and 54th Street. We could never have afforded a building of that size with the monetary situation we had, and we needed something that big to accommodate the equipment that we need to put in. And the city made it available to us on very, very favorable terms, and but in return we were supposed to obviously hire some people.
Sure.
And it just worked out good. So that was the big thing. The second thing, we had a pretty good good group of people in the manufacturing management. We also had a good group of people in sales all over the country. And what really happened was the salespeople, through their relationships, and many of them worked for us 20 years or longer, brought us the business. And the people that we were able to recruit in Enid to run the operations, those people were so loyal and so dedicated, and their integrity was without question. And they were able to take the business and convert it to a reasonable profit, and that's how we grew. And so, to me, receiving this particular honor, I recognize that it's partly the cities and a lot of the people that work for us, and I'm happy to take it as, but remembering where it came
Sure.
from.
And I think all of the honorees realize that it took a lot of individuals for you to get to a particular place, and you realize that it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's really about the big picture and so many other individuals. Well, Enid is known for a lot of landscaping icons, and the grain elevators is one, because you can come in from any direction part of Enid and you say, look at those big old buildings. What are those? Well, you get closer and you see those are grain elevators. But also another just very impressive facility is the David Allen Ballpark. And I was in Oklahoma City just recently at a meeting. A young lady came up to me and said, Steve, are you still in Enid? And I said, yes. And she goes, my son looks forward every year to come up and play in that David Allen Ballpark. Maybe not everybody knows the story behind your efforts and your wife's effort to have that ballpark built, but what can you share about how it all came to be?
Well, really and truly, the idea of the ballpark, or building the ballpark, was my wife's, Joan. She was the one that said, well, let's do this, and
it's good to give wives credit at any time.
Well, it really was her idea. Yeah. Of course, my sons grew up with Bill Mayberry and Todd Humphrey, and they were the baseball player, and they all played baseball too. All three of my sons did, and the oldest one played with Todd and Bill, and Bill had come back, and they were talking about building a ballpark, call it the Grand Avenue Ballpark, I believe. And somehow, and I don't remember the circumstances anyway, but anyway, we got together, and that took place and we opened it up in 1999, and David had played baseball here, and he passed away in 1995, so it wasn't too long after that, and it was it was a tough time for us, obviously.
Sure.
And it was something that she wanted to do, and so we got a hold of Ken Corbin and went down to the brick town and looked at that ballpark, and little by little it came to what it is, and as we went along, there made additional improvements, and so it's about finished now, I would say.
I guess with the loss of your son, that even years later, there's still that loss, but there has to be a little bit of maybe, I don't know, reward, pride, satisfaction, or something about the legacy of knowing that ballpark has impacted that young man, even in Oklahoma City. Yeah. So there has to be maybe a small bit of joy or satisfaction knowing that this tragedy, if you will, has a longer lasting impact on other people's lives. Is that true?
Absolutely. And Joan said one time, she said, well, she just said she wanted to have his name there permanently.
And that's the way it should be. My special guest today is Mr. Paul Allen, the 2014 Pillar of the Plains honoree, and we'll have more with Mr. Allen right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. I have two more questions for Mr. Allen. And Mr. Allen, you know, through the years, you have supported various nonprofit organizations. There's a long list of organizations that you wanted to support and your organization has supported. Why has that philanthropy, or why has the support to these nonprofits organizations, why has it been important to you?
Well, you know, first of all, Joan and I have really liked living in Enid. It's been a great place to raise the kids, and we got a lot of good friends here, and our family's always kind of been wanting to support education and those kinds of things, and so we've just chosen to support Enid Public Schools, Leonardo's. My wife is very involved with the Enid Symphony. She likes she's more culturally oriented than I am. And
I can relate to that. I would say my wife is more on the culture side.
Yeah. So anyway, we just get a certain amount of satisfaction out of that, and really try to help other people and provide things that are just good for the community. You know, you don't need. I mean, there's in the working, we got a lot of satisfaction out of accomplishment and so forth. Sure. Now we don't work, so we get some satisfaction out of giving, you know, to what we think are very worthy organizations.
And we should probably add that the giving is, it's not work, but it's kind of a responsibility that in this time segment of a person's professional career, it's time we have left emphasis on maybe job performance, but now it's that giving performance time in our life. And
that's exactly right.
And we need to be mindful and give that just as much time and energy as we did the other. Well, Mr. Allen, here's my final question. We call this program City Connections, and it seems to have an Enid flavor, but there will be people across the state and across the country that will see this interview, and they will appreciate your rags to riches story, if you will, from how it started to the way it is today. But for the young person who's watching the program and watching you today, and they're at the early stages of their professional career, or they have this idea to have an advanced foods themselves to get there, what one or two suggestions could you give them besides stick with it? What could you share with them to encourage them to reach that dream?
Well, of course, stick with it, what you just said. I guess depending on where they are, if it's in the production and selling of things, they have to understand their market, you know. But it's like I said earlier, it's all about people. It's about the customers. It's about the employees. It's about your suppliers. And all couldn't stress enough how important it is to have a good relationship with everybody you deal with, and then because people aren't going to want to deal with you if they don't like you, you know. So it's just to me that's the most important thing. It's you have to have a certain amount of brain power, so to speak, I presume, but the honesty and the dealing with people and always living up to what you say, or try hard to do what you say you're going to do, those are, you will not be successful if you don't do those things.
I always remember my mother always saying, Steve, do what you say you're going to do. Yeah. If you can just do that, you'll be on the right track. Mr. Allen, thank you for your time today. Thank you and your wife Joan for your legacy, if you will, and so your contribution past the ballpark and past providing jobs, but thank you for just being an example of giving back to the community, and I just appreciate you being on City Connections today.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and we thank the City of Enid for giving us the opportunity.
And thank you for being with us. So I guess in summary, it's all about relationships. As Mr. Allen said, his success, a lot of it is just all about relationships. And we appreciate the relationship of being able to come to you each week here on City Connections, here on the Enid Television Network. Again, for Mr. Allen, I'm Steve Kime. Thank you for joining with us. And again, my final comment to you is make it a great day. Thanks for joining us.